Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the QT2 Systems Run Formula 2022 New York City Marathon Race Preview and Pre-Race Tips. My name is Reem Joshi. I'm the QT2 Systems Content Director, and our presenter this evening is Hillary Schmitt. So Hillary is a lifelong runner. She joined QT2 Systems in 2017, first as an athlete and now as a coach. She's an accomplished runner and triathlete, having qualified on multiple occasions for the Ironman 70.3 and Ironman World Championships. She's also a multiple time Boston Marathon qualifier, and recently just qualified for the World Marathon Majors Wanda Age Group World Championship. So super accomplished athlete. She's raced in the New York City Marathon many times and ran her way to a PR last year at a 3:04 time. So she knows this course. She knows how to race it. She knows all the logistics. So great person to be presenting for this evening. Welcome, Hillary. Thank you for doing this, and I will turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Reem. Welcome, everybody. Oops, let me just go back real quick. Tonight, we're going to discuss the 2022 New York City Marathon, some race preview and race tips, and just kind of give you a course overview. I'll kind of put some tips that I've learned from racing this race a couple times. A little bit of the presentation overview. We are going to talk about the QT2 Five Cornerstones, and we're going to go through the cornerstones and tackle the final weeks we're kind of in right now, race week and then race day. So our QT2 Five Cornerstones, we have our training, daily training, our nutrition and restoration, which leads into the preparation. And then we have our race fueling and our race pacing, which will go to our execution. And then our fifth pillar, which would be mental fitness, which will then go into our race outcome. So these last final weeks, I guess we have just about over 3 weeks until the marathon. If we hit the first cornerstone training, we want to be in and hitting those last final key sessions. We start to taper off a little bit. There's no big fitness gains during this time. You want to try to simulate race conditions and some race intensities during your training this week. New York is extremely hilly at the end. If I was doing this, I would take Sunday, if you do your long runs on Sunday, almost make it like a dress rehearsal run. So you want to plan out what you're going to eat on Saturday night, if it was the night before the marathon. And then from a training perspective, you want to try to hit some of those race pace marathon miles. Like you want to know what it feels like. What are you going to wear? Try to have some hills at the end of that training run, because your legs are going to be taxed and then you're going to be asked to go run the hills in Central Park at the end. So, and fuel that way, whatever you're going to do on race day, try to do on this upcoming long run. Our next cornerstone is nutrition and restoration, fluid intake. I'm particular when it comes to how much I take in coming towards my race day. I almost write out my water bottles of what I consume. You want to drink at least half of your body weight every day, and also in addition to what you're losing during your workouts. It's a lot, but if you track it, then you're aware of what you've taken in. This is a time to keep your nutrient density up. You want to aim for 4 fruits and vegetables each day. Have that cheat meal. As I said, on Saturday before your long run, take in that big carbohydrate meal on Saturday if you're doing your long run this week. Have a big pasta meal, have some pizza. And you want to fuel all your workouts. So I always have, no matter what I go on any training run, I always have fuel with me. If I have a short recovery run, if I have some interviews, I always have sugar on me. You want to make sure that your gut can handle the fuel you're taking in and at the intensity you're running at. Make sleep a priority. I know this is tricky to sleep 7.5, 8 hours a night. I have 2 little ones, but I do try to make it a goal to get off my feet by between 8 and 9 every night. Doesn't mean you have to be sleeping, but at least you're off your feet and you're resting. We recommend to use a recovery drink. The Clean is what we use right now at QT2 after all training sessions. And it's a 4-to-1 carb to protein ratio. It's muscle glycogen replenishment and you're repairing. You want to make sure that you're getting and replenishing your muscles after a hard workout. Take an anti-inflammatory measures, pop it in an omega-3 fatty acid will help with inflammation. Again, stay up on top of hydration, reduce your stress as much as you can, and get the sleep required. Start to taper down caffeine. We want to target at least less than 800 milligrams a week. Maybe the next 3 weeks, instead of having 3 to 4 cups of coffee, narrow it to 1 cup. I know I've noticed that if I stop caffeine by 12, whether it be a gel or anything, it's not affecting my sleep. I used to take a gel that might have a little bit of caffeine, say at 2 o'clock, and I would notice that it would affect my sleep. So really start to taper down the caffeine in the next 3 weeks or so. The next final weeks for fueling, you want to fuel in accordance with your fueling plan during every session. You want to use the actual products in your plan at the rate expected on race day. So if you're going to take a gel every 30 minutes, this coming Sunday or Saturday when you do your long run, practice taking a gel in every 30 minutes. Make sure your stomach and your gut can handle that at that race intensity. So if you're running a couple marathons at, a couple miles at race pace, take a gel in, make sure you can absorb it, drink the fluids. We don't want no surprises. That's one thing that we definitely have control over. And you can also start your recovery from the session during the session. Again, the replenishment meal, take that fuel in on Saturday night this week if you're going to do your long run on Sunday. And on race day, fueling may be the most important and the most likely limiter on performance. And that's one variable we have complete control over. So the more we practice fueling on what we're going to fuel with and the intensities we do, there'll be no surprises come race day. Your stomach should be able to completely tolerate it. Final weeks, pacing cornerstone. Race-specific training sessions are easy. Again, you want to feel they can be short intervals. You can do a mile interview, but you want to know what it feels like to run at that race pace. Again, try to simulate some of those intensities. Doesn't have to be long, but just that quick turnover. And then train your targets, whether you're training by heart rate, I run with power, RPE, or if you're running by pace. Mental fitness. You want to begin reducing any external pressures, like don't go out, chill out, list the pressures that are real versus kind of self-imposed, like have no expectations. This is your day. Like you've worked hard for this day. This should be, the fun day. Focus on items you have 100% control over, your attitude and your fueling plan. Begin visualization, best performance strategy. What does it feel good? Like, what's it going to feel like to have a really good race? Or coping imagery. If something does go wrong, what can I do to fix it? I spend a lot of time leading up to the race. I work on my race fueling plan. I work on my pacing plan. And I also have a mental fitness plan where I will sit down and I will write out either mantras or quotes that if I do get into a dark place, how do I pull myself out of it? If you're at the Queensboro Bridge at mile 15 and you come off and you're in this huge crowd at 16 and you're like, oh my God, I still have 10 more miles, what can it be? I know some mantras I've used is kind of like, stay in the moment every moment and take 1 mile at a time. Like check in with yourself every mile. Am I feeling okay? Do I need more fuel? How's my body feeling? Do I need more hydration? And then list your goals and targets. What are your goals for the race? Goals, what are the things that you have control over? Versus targets are more numbers based, like, hey, I want to run a 4-hour marathon or I want to run a 3:30. Like we don't have complete control over that. We can't control the weather. We could be hit on a rainstorm. We don't know that. But the one thing we do have control over is our attitude and what we bring. And then trust your preparation. I mean, you've worked hard for this, like all that training will be done and you can just focus on the race. Final week logistics. So I've been on the website quite a bit. They are still making a couple changes. So I would just in the next couple of weeks start to review it more and more. Make your lists, confirm your reservations. I was in New York City last night. It was crowded. If I can give you one takeaway, Central Park was crowded, Times Square was crowded, subways were booked. Book your reservations now. If you want to go out to dinner on Saturday night, book it now. Because the last thing you want on Saturday night is to be walking around the city and you don't have a reservation, you're on your feet. There's a ton of people in the city, and it was crowded last night. I can just imagine what it will be on marathon weekend. Begin packing, log in. If you haven't done this yet, log in and select your check-in times and your transportation, when you want to check into the expo, and also the transportation to the start. Last year, I took the Manhattan bus from the public library, and it was super simple. But just make sure those two things are done before you obviously get to the expo. I would do it kind of this week. And okay, so now we're going to focus kind of again with the cornerstones, a little redundant, but we're going to go towards race week now. Okay, so again, we're going to have those final sessions. These are going to be more short race intensities, maybe like some 400s or 800s, but nothing crazy. There's no fitness game during this time. You've done all the work. Do not overtrain, do not panic train. You want to really put your feet up, like get off your feet. On course training, if you're staying in the city, I would recommend on Friday or Saturday, whenever you get in there, just do an easy recovery run through the hills. Like you'll know, like miles, if you look at the course map, you'll know miles 23, 25 are kind of rolling. You can go in and just do a really, really easy, I think I went in and did like a 12-minute recovery run, shakeout run right before the race last year. There's a ton of people. Stay in your own box, let them go past you. Just get a feel for the hills. Take a day off, just take a day off, do nothing. Just let your body recover more. And then a small shakeout run, either Friday or Saturday. Race week, nutrition and restoration. So you want to eat relatively normal diet the week of the race, maybe start to cut out fiber on that Thursday, Friday, obviously Saturday. Have a large breakfast the day before, try to consume by 9 a.m. Focus is going to be on carbohydrates. We want to have pancakes, hash browns, eggs, toast, no coffee or limit the coffee, no fat. Fat takes too long to digest. And obviously hydrate. I think I had a bunch of pancakes and then sat in Rockefeller Center and kept my foot up and people watched. Like you just want to be off your feet. After breakfast, the day before, you want to kind of start to taper the food throughout the day. Food choices should be carbohydrate rich, low in fat or no fat, low in fiber, and then snack on pretzels. Salt's always good for you, extra salt. Fat-free Fig Newtons, and obviously plenty of sports drink. Definitely stay up on hydration. As again, hydration is a focus. Drink plenty of fluids, sports drinks, water for 3 days leading up to the race. Try to stay away from the zero drinks. Sometimes that can irritate your stomach a little bit. Again, try to taper the caffeine intake as much as possible, even if you did half decaf, half caffeinated coffee. But if you really lay off of it and then take the caffeine come race day, you're gonna feel it. Again, sleep 7 to 8 hours per night. Stay off your feet as much as possible. With travel, it could be hard to get that. So, bank, if you can get a couple, 3 or 4 good nights of sleep, go with that. Like just try to stay off your feet. Race week fueling. Continue to fuel and hydrate in accordance with your race plan during every workout. Use, again, the actual products in your plan. The purpose is to make sure our muscle glycogen levels are never depleted. And always, we want to be topped off as possible. Like you just want to make sure you continuously fuel. You don't want to go into Sunday being depleted. And it's very easy to get behind. Drink Gatorade Endurance during every session at the rate at which you expect to take. So again, we go back to the kind of this week, take the Gatorade as if you were going to take it on race day. Like if you're going to drop, stop at every aid station, take a handheld and practice this this Sunday, just to make sure you've trained the gut and it can take it in. At QT2, we recommend Tuesday night as a fat loading meal. You could have like a turkey burger, large order sweet potato fries, a highly nutrient dense meal. Studies have shown that if you take kind of a fat loading meal 5 days prior, it helps with carbohydrate absorption. So just kind of maybe on Tuesday, start to think about that. Race week pacing. You want to think about your pacing plan for the race. The Run Form has a great calculator. You can go in, it will kind of populate, a race plan, pacing plan. My coach and I took, and I'll show, it will come up. We took the kind of the course profile and we sectioned it off into chunks of it. And we made a pacing plan based on that. So we took, okay, say going up the hill, you're going to be targeting at this power. But and I actually took a piece of paper and I held it with me. So I knew my pacing plan. I knew exactly what I had to hold up the hills, down the hills, on the flats. And it kept me really patient throughout the race, because the crowds are deep. It's a fun party. There's a ton of people, and it's very easy to get caught up and you go out way too fast. And then you come to the end of the race and people struggle. Again, you want to try to hit some of those race pace efforts a tad, and then just know, are you going to train by heart rate, power, RP, or pace? Like, know your pacing plan going into it. Race week mental fitness. Reduce as much external pressures. I mean, you're going to be traveling some. I actually flew in this weekend and was in the airport, and it was busy. Just allow extra time. Don't get stressed out with the travel. Focus on items you have 100% control over. Again, your attitude and fueling plan. And I would also say, like, just your mental fitness plan. Like, have some mantras, have some cue words that if you start to get in a deep hole, that can bring you up. Like, I try to, my one is always like kind of stay in my box. Like, I don't worry about anybody else come race day. If someone's going to blow by me, that's okay. I stay in them. I run the mile I'm in, and I try to stay in the moment every moment. Trust your preparation. I mean, you guys have put the work in, you've done the long runs. Like, I always tell people, like, race day is the fun day. Like, you put the efforts in. Stick to your plan. Like, you know your race plan. We just spoke to that. Like, if you can sit down in the next couple of weeks, this week, next week, and really nail down that race plan, your fueling plan, you're going to go into this race like in a good frame of mind. And I always say the mind controls the body. Like, have that stuff narrowed out before you go into the marathon day. And then continue to visualize every night during race week. Like, what is it going to feel like to hit race pace, like your targets? Like, what does it feel like to hit your race numbers? And if something does go wrong, like you start to bonk or you're not feeling so good, how will I respond? If you start to feel like, oh my God, I'm going up the Queensboro Bridge and it's so intense and I don't know how I'm going to get through the hills in Central Park, carry like an emergency gel with you and start to even just sip on it a little bit. Like, you might just have a little bit of low blood sugar. I think it definitely pulled me out. I had one of my fastest miles last year in New York right at the end. And I think it's because I kept fueling all the time, and it just kept my blood sugar high, and I felt really good. Why can't I go down? Okay. Race week check-in and logistics. The expo location is at the Javits Center. It is all the way over on the west side on 35th Street, all the way over on the 11th Ave. You must be in person to pick up your race materials. You need your photo ID and your confirmation form. As I said before, you should have selected a time. If you haven't this week, log in and select a time to pick up your race materials. Face coverings, they're no longer required. I would bring one just to have. I mean, there's going to be so many people there. You might just want to take the precaution and wear a mask. The expo is open to the general public this year. And if you're staying in the city, you can take the subway. If you're staying out city, you could take the train, the bus, the ferry. Super easy. Just walk all the way to the west side. You can't miss it. And then those are the expo hours. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 10 to 8. The expo is a great time. I mean, it's usually the best vendors are there. I just would recommend getting your stuff, and then maybe if there's some keynote speakers, maybe check them out. You'll always will learn something, but get in and get out. Don't spend a ton of time Friday and Saturday on your feet. This is the time you rest. And a little bit just continued. At the expo, you're going to receive your bib number, your shirt. There's an option this year that you're not going to be allowed to pre-check a bag on race morning. So if you decide that you want a bag for the end of the race to be transported when you finish, like you want extra clothing or your own gear, you need to make sure you drop it off in Central Park on Friday or Saturday, 9 to 5. That's kind of the biggest change. So you'll have a bag at the finish line, but you have to make sure that you check it in on Friday or Saturday. You cannot check race morning. Okay, so now we're going to talk about kind of race day, and then we'll go to our course overview. So race day morning nutrition. New York's a late start. Some people don't go off till 9, 10, 11. In regards to breakfast, we like to try to eat 3 hours prior to the race start. So that might mean that you have to bring your breakfast to the start of the race. In QT2, we recommend a simple carbohydrate, fluid, electrolytes, small amount of protein, no fat, again, slow down digestion, fiber, extra vitamins. At the core diet, we recommend applesauce, a banana, 1 scoop away, and sports drink. I would bring this, you know, if you take off at 9:30, 10, you're going to eat breakfast at 6, 6:30, depending on when you're going to get there. If you decide to eat breakfast at home, bring extra carbohydrates for the start of the race, because you'll be sitting there for a while. And you just, again, want to make sure that your levels of glycogen are topped off before you start the race. Sip on sports drinks. They'll have some there. I think they had Gatorade, they'll have water, but I would just bring an extra one and just sip on it throughout. Make sure you're really hydrated going in. Again, bring extra nutrition to the village, take an extra banana sports drink. And then once you get into the corral, last year we had to wait a while. So take a gel with you, maybe take 2 with you. You might be in there 30 to 40 minutes. You're going to kind of go into the village based on your color, and then you'll go into the corral. So just have some extra food with you. On course nutrition, you want to follow your race fueling plan with what you've trained for with. If you're planning to use the gels that are supplied by New York City, make sure you try them. I actually jumped onto Amazon today to see if I could find, they're doing the science and sports energy gels. They have them. If you think you might use on course nutrition, I would recommend maybe getting some from Amazon or the feed. I know had them too, and just try them out. Know your race fueling plan. So as we talked about, we had our race pacing plan. We knew our fueling plan. Are you going to take a gel every 30 minutes, 45 minutes? Like, don't have no surprises, have it narrow down what you're going to do. There's going to be water and Gatorade endurance formula, the lemon lime, at every mile from 3 to 25, except for 5, 7, and 9. And then the science and sports gels will be available at mile 12 and 18. And then the flavors are raspberries, salted strawberries, berry, apple, pineapple, and orange. Even if you don't feel like you need a gel at mile 12 or 18, I would just grab one. I think I did Boston when Boston was in the fall, and then to New York 3 weeks later. And I think New York is a tougher course. I think the biggest takeaway I took was I had extra gels with me that I was able to take a gel once I hit like the 2-hour mark, almost every 20 minutes. So going into the hills, I was pretty prepared to tackle them because I was so topped off with fuel. So even if you don't feel like you need it at 12 and 18, grab it. The berry caffeinated, which I'll get to in a minute, it has 75 milligrams of caffeine, which is a lot. So if you're not used to taking gels that have that much, you might just want to either sip on it or kind of experiment and see if you can take in 75, because you'll get a jolt. Bananas will be available at miles 21 and 23. So this is the SIS. The carbs, there's about 22 grams per gel. Sodium is low. And the berry, like I just said, has about 75 milligrams of caffeine. So if you do decide to get a berry one, just be aware of it. And again, take one at 12 or 18 just for insurance. You know, if you feel like, oh, I don't need to grab it, because you're going to want it before the park hits. Race day fueling plan. So at the core diet, we can develop a race fueling day plan that will tell you, here's, you know, this is what you eat for breakfast. We even have what you have the day before, what you should have pre-race, and then, you know, every 40, 30 minutes, depending on what you would have. It's a big race. The aid stations are going to be crowded. Don't get frustrated if you can't get the first Gatorade or water you want. Just go a little bit further and grab another one. Don't skimp on it. You know, even though the weather might be a little bit cold, you're still going to get dehydrated. So if you can walk the aid stations and then just pick up the pace and go, do it. but don't miss an aid station. Even if you just take a little bit of Gatorade or water, make sure you get it in. And then follow your plan. Like if you guys start to narrow this down now, there should be no surprises come race day. And that's why I recommended in the beginning is, you know, on this next long run coming up, practice this. Like practice your breakfast 3 hours before, take a gel, and make sure that your stomach can handle everything. Race day mental fitness, again, focus on the controllables. You know, if the weather's not good, we can't control it. We can just, again, control our attitude. Trust your preparation. Some of the road conditions, I think I remember on the Queensboro was a little bit unlevel. Just be aware of some of the conditions. But if the weather's bad, we're all dealt the same elements. It's just the way we go into it, and you can control your attitude. I kind of stay present, stay positive, stay in the moment, stay in the mile you're in. You know, don't think about, you know, you're running mile 3. Don't think about the Queensboro Bridge. Just think about mile 3 and check in with yourself. Do I need more fluid? Do I need more carbohydrates? If you start to feel you're bonking a little bit or you're dialing back on pace, just take a gel or take a block, take something. Items you have 100% control over: your attitude and your fueling plan. Secondly, focus on your targets, your power, your pace, your pacing plan. And then if something does go wrong, how are you going to react? You know, if you have to walk a little bit, take a gel in. Like if you feel like, oh my God, this is really difficult, take a gel and you'll start to feel a little bit better. And then run your race, stay in your box. Like people are going to come off, they're going to up the Verrazano, come down, and they're going to fly through Brooklyn. And that if I can give you any word of advice, just be patient during that time, because it will pay off come the hills at the end. Race day pacing. So there are a couple things. We mentioned the run formula that you could go. There's also findmymarathon.com where you can develop like a pace bracelet, and you can kind of go in, you can have it populate if you want to evenly pace or if you want a negative split, if you want to go out aggressive. And this will show you if I start out, if my goal pace was say a 4 hour, you know, I start out at 10 because we're going up a hill, but then you can see you can really take it down on that second mile. And there'll be mile splits along the course. So you'll be able to, I always like kind of looked at my pace bracelet in my watch, in my piece of paper to kind of see where I was out. There will be pace teams available. So if you have a target of, hey, I want to run a 4 hour marathon, when you get into your corral, find that group. Last year, they were pretty crowded, 20 to 25 people, probably. Some of them were really busy. Just stick around that area of people. You don't have to be on top of the pacer, but if you just want to have people that are running the same kind of pace as you, then just kind of stick with them. If the watch starts to, you know, sometimes Garmin's don't pick up in the big cities or on the bridges. I remember I used to hold my watch, and on the bridge, I couldn't see my numbers. So just be aware, that's kind of thing. The Queensboro is pretty dark, and don't freak out if the Garmin you think is off a little bit, because it could be. Race day logistics. So as I mentioned before, you're going to get there and you're going to wait for a long time. When you board transportation, however you get there, make sure to bring extra clothes, maybe like a garbage bag to sit on. I brought like 2 jackets, a hat, gloves, sweatpants, and then bring extra food. You can bring your breakfast or you can bring extra food. Set out your gear for race morning, your bib, your electronics, again, clothing, nutrition, extra nutrition. Confirm race morning logistics, like make sure you get, if you're in the city and you're walking to the library, just make sure you get on the bus. Early bedtime, set your alarm. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the course overview of the New York City. This is going to be the start area map. Your bib will either be blue, green, or orange, and this is kind of the village. So when you get off the transportation, whatever method you choose, you're going to kind of just camp out here. And you need to camp out within the color you're there. And then when it's time for you to be called, you're going to go into these corrals here based upon your time. But this is kind of like what it's on the website. This is kind of, there's porta potties, there's Dunkin' Donuts coffee, Gatorade. They give out Dunkin' Donuts hats. It's super easy. You just look for your color. And then I just brought like a trash bag and I just kind of camped out for some hours. All the bibs. So going into the bus last year, just to attach your bib right away. I had to show it in line waiting for the bus, before I got on the bus, when I got on the bus, just have it visible, because you're going to be carrying your nutrition. You're going to be having extra clothes. Just put it on and kind of lift up your sweatshirt or whatever. For runners taking public transportation, face coverings seem to be optional this year. Again, I would just bring one just to have you know, if you've got a person hacking next to you, you're not going to want that. I would just have a mask with you. The start of the corrals, you're responsible for arriving your assigned corral. You're going to have, I think, a number and a letter, and you just want to make sure you get in the right one. You may move back to a slower corral, but you cannot move forward. So if you are in, say, corral, you know, if it's A, B, C, and D, if you're in B, you cannot move up to A. You would have to move down to C if you want to run with, you know, a friend or something. Make sure you get there. I would recommend that when they call your corral, just get there. Keep your clothes on. I did not discard my clothes until maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes before the start that we could go. There's a bunch of donation bags there, but I remember sitting in my corral almost another 30 minutes. So once they call your corral, still keep some of your nutrition, your hydration, and keep your clothes on. Don't take anything off until you need to. Then the pacers, again, once you're in there, find your pacer if you want to line up with the pacer. These are the start times. So we have the professional wheelchair division, you have the women's going off, the men's, and then these will be, you know, kind of our waves going off. So depending on what wave you are in, just be aware of it. You know, if you get there at 7 a.m., you're going to be waiting a good 3 or 4 hours. So that's why I recommend bringing breakfast, bringing extra fuel. You just want to go into the race feeling good, you know, and extra clothing, something to sit on. So I think that's why I probably brought 2 jackets, because I just wanted to have some cushion on the cement and the tar. Okay, so this is a little bit, average finish times are around 4 hours and 39 minutes. A couple years ago, there was close to like 50,000 people. Last year, because of COVID, I think we were down to maybe 25,000 people or so. 91 countries represent. Be prepared to run with someone every step of the way. And use this to your advantage. Like if we have a little bit of a headwind, tuck in behind someone that's like really tall and let them block the wind for you. Like I mentioned this before, aid stations are going to be crowded. Don't get frustrated. Just kind of move around, but don't skimp on them. Just because they're crowded doesn't mean you can't get it. Like definitely get it. Do not waste energy trying to weave in and out of people. Find a lane that you can run comfortably in, especially on the bridge going up. Just know that mile is going to be slower and you will make it up. I think my first mile versus my second mile was almost like a minute and a half difference. You'll have time. Don't waste your energy going in and out of people, especially up the hill. Race day course overview. It's not a flat race. It's pretty hilly, approximately 33 feet of elevation gain per mile. The bridges can be super windy. Be prepared at the end to do some climbing. And that's why I said, like with the emergency gel, have it, because it will help come the end of the race. So this is the race day course elevation. This is where I was saying with the pacing plan, we took this and we sectioned it off of how we wanted to run the race. So you could easily take this this profile and break it up. I knew exactly the power numbers I had to hit for the hills and the bridges. Here's 13 and 15, and then at the end. And then I broke it out here for you guys too. This is miles 1 through 15. So you climb for a while, but then you're going right downhill. Brooklyn is extremely flat. There's a couple rollers. The energy is huge. The crowds are crazy. If I can recommend anything, you need to be extremely patient through here. Do not go out too hard, because you're going to want to conserve and reserve your energy for the end. You'll hit one little bridge here at the halfway mark. And then here's your Queensboro Bridge. I think the bridges might be over. I think this bridge is over a mile long. It's dark, it's lonely, but as soon as you come off of it, and you can even hear it, the crowds are crazy at mile 16. Again, do not get too caught up into the energy at 16 because there's still 10 more miles to run. A couple rollers, but primarily flat. And then you're going to hit the park. And then that's where you see you're going to really want the energy, even though it's only 3 miles. 3 miles could take a while, if, you know, especially being taxed on your legs for 23 miles already. The course is going to take you through the 5 boroughs in New York City, start in Staten Island. You're in Brooklyn for a while, super flat, crowds are great. Queens for a little bit, Brooklyn, and then Manhattan at the end. Miles 1 through 2, you're going to go up the Verrazano, super crowded. Don't weave in and out, just stick with it. Downhill into Brooklyn. I remember chucking my hat and my gloves and I was getting a little hot. Very slow going up, fast going down. Again, don't waste the energy. Have patience. Like, if I can tell you anything, just be really smart during these miles, because you're going to want the energy at the end. Follow your pacing and fueling plan. Try not to get caught out in the crowds. It's so much fun. Be prepared. I would just know where your bridges are. You got 13, you got 15. Make sure you fuel those. If you remember back, I told you they are giving out the SAS gels at mile 12. Like, I would make sure that I had a good gel going into me before I hit the Queensboro Bridge. You don't want to be low in fuel going up that. And this is actually a picture of what the Queensboro Bridge looks like. I definitely had a little bit of trouble seeing my numbers on my watch. The footing is a little bit off here and there, so just be aware of it. There's not much crowd support. I think those people must have been just when you came onto the bridge. Again, conserve your energy coming off the bridge. And then it's pretty flat through the Bronx. Again, fuel. If I would fuel definitely mile 20 to set you up for those rolling hills at the end. The last 10K is pretty hard. Mile 24, rolling hills, be careful. Quite a few rolling hills at the end can be challenging very late in the race. And I think back to my plan. I think the biggest takeaway I got why I finished so strong in New York was because I really started to fuel come mile probably 18 to 21, 22. So I definitely had a lot of glycogen going into me. Race day last minute tips. You want to, again, get everything organized the night before. Pin your number on, make sure it's on, because if you get on transportation, they're going to ask for it all the time. Get your gels, your hydration, know your plan, know your pacing plan, know your fueling plan, charge electronics, right? Your watch. Again, be sure to pack extra clothes. And this is kind of, you know, what it's like. Some people, there's the Dunkin' Donuts hats I mentioned. You want to be able to sit on something. It could be cold, it could be rainy. You just don't know. You'll be at the start for several hours. Remember to stay warm, hydrate, and dry. The weather, you just never know. I mean, it could be in the high 50s. It could be in the low 40s. It could be very cold at the start. And then, so that's why I always say to pack extra clothes. The winds aren't too bad, but if they are, stick behind someone. The cutoff time is 6 hours and 30 minutes. Again, be prepared to run with people every step of the way. Don't forget body glide. Like, as the cold weather's kind of creep in on us, make sure you put some body glide. You don't want to start chafing, you know, mile 16, 17, it's going to hurt. So that's one thing just to kind of make on your list. Don't forget body glide. Post race, you're going to get your medal, a poncho, a recovery bag, and then you also get the pre-check bag. So if you decide that you want to check a bag on Friday or Saturday, you'll pick it up here. The exit is pretty long. It's about a half a mile to the past the finish line. And I would coordinate. I met a friend, I think on, like, say 72nd in Amsterdam when I finished last year. Get at it. You're going to, I think, enter off of Central Park West. You want to maybe book with your family or plan to meet them on Amsterdam or Columbus. Just get away from the crowds because it's so crowded, and just try to have them meet you maybe on, just look at the New York City map, but maybe meet you on, say, 70th in Amsterdam or 70th Columbus. Just go one Ave over, just so it's an easier meeting spot. Oh, And then my number's there, my email's there. Please text me, reach out if there's any questions whatsoever. I've done the race a bunch of times, but I'm totally willing to help anyone that needs help with it.
Great, thank you, Hillary. That was really informative. And so does anyone have any questions? I haven't seen any show up in the chat box. If you have any, you can either go ahead and type them into the chat box, or feel free to come off of mute now and ask your questions. This is your opportunity. You have a live speaker here who knows the course. So if you have anything.
Yeah, hi, this is Cook. Great presentation, by the way. Really enjoyed it. My question is, going into the village, I thought I read somewhere that they're really limiting what you can bring in. Is that misinformation?
No,
Or
that's
does it have
right.
to
That's
be in
right.
the-
They're
in the
going to give
special-
you a small bag. I think when you check in, and you can put, it's small, you can put all your fueling in there, and that's going to be basically the extent of it. If you want to check a bag, you need to, like, say you want clothing at the end of the race, you need to check that in Friday or Saturday. There's no bag check in the morning of.
No, I understand that. But when you're walking into the village, I mean, people used to bring all kinds of stuff into the village while they're waiting. There's no limit on that? I mean, you can bring the comforter or the ground cloth and all that stuff this year?
Yeah, I think it does have to fit in the bag. I mean, I don't think you can bring a big sleeping bag as you've seen. I would just bring like a trash bag to sit on, and maybe an extra coat. But I can look back onto that, but I don't think you're allowed to bring like a big blanket in. Usually you can just bring the bag that they provide for you.
And that's a different bag than the one that if you've pre-checked.
Correct. They will give you a kind of like a rectangle ship bag. Last year they did, and then you could put all your fueling in. I put my gloves in, my hat in. It's big enough to put a breakfast and enough in, but you definitely could fit a comforter in there.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, New York does too have a list of prohibited items. So I would definitely take a look at that list, because there are things that aren't allowed in that race that are allowed in others, like a camelback. Some people like to run with them. You cannot do that in New York. So it's a good thing just to check into to make sure that you have that list in front of you, so you know. Any other questions now? All right, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Make sure you have Hillary's information. If you have any questions going forward, this webinar it has been recorded today, and it will be up on the QT2 Systems and the Run Formula websites. It'll be on the QT2 Systems YouTube channel as well. So you're welcome to come back and view anytime.
Thanks, Reem.
Thank you, Hillary. Have a good night, everyone.